everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on Spy Family episode 15. So I had to take a couple days off, a bit more than I thought I was between episode 14 and this one, but I was able to see everybody's comments for episodes 14 and 13, which was really exciting. So I'm all caught up with comments and ready to start this episode. So when we last left off, Loid was about to shoot a dog. I know the dog was trying to attack him, but like the dog lover in me is like, oh, Loid, please don't kill that dog. But I do have some comments that I want to talk about before we start this episode. One is from Goro-Chan, and it talks about how the lyrics, and actually Pichu also talked about this on Patreon too, but this is from YouTube, that the OP lyrics and the perspective of most of the OP is from Loid's point of view. And I was like, because we don't see Loid a lot in the OP, and so it being from his perspective makes a lot more sense. So I haven't listened to the lyrics. I've listened to the full OP for the second core, and I really like it. When I do my jogging, I've listened to it, but I've not actually listened to, read the words to it. But I figure when we're done with this season, like I did in episode 12, when we're done with this core, I'll sit down and react to the lyrics of the OP and the ED and see, because I like doing it at the end of the season, because a lot of times if you listen to them too soon, then they can kind of sometimes they hint of things to come in the season, and I don't want to do that. So I'll listen to it probably when we do the episode. I guess it'll be 25 when we get to that point. So exciting, right? But I like the ideas from Loid's perspective. When we watch the OP, I'll have to pay attention to that. Ikinka, 8565 talks about that the song that Anya's singing in episode 13, that woof, 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 woof song, is actually a Japanese children's song called Inu no Amawari-san, and they sent me a link to it, and of these little kids performing it. It's adorable. If you go to episode 13's comment section on YouTube, there's a link that they put to it. Friggin' cute. And I like that little meta reference to something that's in reality. So that's really fun. And then both Niaj and the same Akikenka person talked about how Chris, in the Crunchyroll subtitles, it said Chris with the C, but actually their Japanese name is Karisu. So Niaj and Akinka were talking about how it probably was that it's meant to be Chris with a K. And I felt much better after that, because the person in me that wants things to be succinct, you have, all these names with a K and one with a C, I'm like, change it to a K. So that made me feel a lot better. I was like, okay, good. Glad to see that. But yeah, the only other thing I related to note comment wise is that over on the Discord for Patreon, we were talking about Spy Family, and I believe it was OKU shared a link where it was clickbait. It was clickbait, and I'm glad it was, because it was like a sarcastic interview where the mangaka who created Spy Family was sarcastically saying that they weren't tied down to these characters, and that this project was just like a side project just to get them back on track and rebound after previous manga, and that they weren't as devoted to the characters or cared much for them. And us in the Discord, we were like, well, this is really sad that he's doesn't care about these characters that these other people like. And then Wim posted an article saying that it was a clickbait, and I was like, oh, thank goodness. The whole sarcasm in it was kind of there, but I'm glad it was just clickbait. So good deal. But I have no clue what we're going to do. I'm assuming that our resident Borf, our resident old dog, he's going to be integrated into the family after this episode's over, because I feel like this was like a 3-part thing. Like, we had part 1 was episode 13, 14, and now we're in part 15. Surely it's just a 3-parter. I can't imagine the whole series is going to be following this bomb scandal. I feel like we're going to wrap it up in this episode, but I thought we were going to wrap it up last episode. So is this the first 3-parter we've had in this series? Maybe. So yeah, but I'm pretty excited. The only other thing I want to note before we begin is that everybody was talking about how, the first core, it was all about Anya getting into the academy and following Anya in her school studies. And now the second core has started out with just the spy elements and Loid's background. So Christopher Peterson noted, do you think we'll follow Yor around, do assassination stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. That'd be really interesting if we followed Yor on an assassination mission, but we'll see, right? So let's find out and not waste any more time, shall we? We're going to start episode 15 of Spy Family, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, this was so cute. This was such a cute episode, and it was much needed after the last 2 episodes that were a little bit more grim. and a little bit more serious. I think having a really cute episode was definitely needed. I was really curious what they were going to do about the dog, because I'm like, I didn't see any way that Loid was going to get around shooting the dog, but then the way that he shot the bomb strap pack off of it and tore it off and threw it over the fence into the river, and then actually took the dog bite on his arm, which luckily he had Kevlar on underneath, or it looked like it was maybe like a Kevlar thing with it. Luckily that was the case, because I was like, I was afraid he was gonna have like a big bloody like injury on his arm, and he'd have to explain that to Yor and Anya and be like, how are we gonna do this? But no, he had the Kevlar and stuff. And it was even like, look, sorry dog, but I gotta put you up against the wall and knock you out so that Keith, at first I was like, how did Keith not see him? But then on the other hand, it's like, well, he didn't, from that angle, he could see the back of the dog. Why would he think that Loid had been good enough why would he think that the minister would have been good enough to shoot the bomb pack off a dog, right? So I like even Loid, he's nice enough to say sorry about this as he knocks his dog out and leaves him in the dumpster. Oh my gosh. So yeah, meanwhile, poor Yor is looking for Anya and manages to notice that it's the guy, that it's Keith from earlier. And he's like, how dare you do that to Anya? I love that Yor basically just like, she kicked in the front end of a car and just knocked him out. Just is great. Like her just kicked the side of the car and made him go off the road. And then she's just like, oh, hey, police, it's me. I'm from earlier. The terrorist is right here. Bye. There's this innocence to Yor that I really appreciate. And it's a good balance because Loid is very worldly, and he's been through the grit and everything. And he's I'm not going to say Loid is like glass half empty, but he's not the most optimistic person, right? And so having Yor there, who's much more of like a positive person despite her profession, I feel like she's good at her profession because she can very much, Loid, he has trouble separating his profession from everything else. Like his nature as a spy seeps into every aspect of his being. Whereas it's funny because yours seems to be able to kind of like, she can put aside the assassin part over here to the side and keep everything else like different. So that's a cool contrast between her and Loid, right? Yor has not had any missions lately. So that's interesting. I'm just waiting for the shopkeeper to call and ask Yor to go out and do an assassination. I'm just waiting for it to happen, but we've not got there yet. And so then, yeah, we have the handler talking about the governments, and they're going to erase every sign that anything that happened from today was the case. And they're like, what are we going to do about all the dogs? And they're like, well, that's not our jurisdiction. We're just going to watch them and then report them to the higher-ups, and they'll do what they can with them. We've got our own things that we need to look after. And so Loid's like, I got a family to take care of. Bye. I got to go. I've told them I've been on the toilet the last 8 hours, and I'm exhausted. And so Loid is just like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. And then he runs into both Yor, who's like out of breath. I love that Yor has like the flushed cheeks, like she's been running the whole time looking for Anya. And then Anya just shows up at the same time. And they're like, and Loid's like, what happened here? And so Yor kind of fills him in. And she's like, I came back because you were taking too long in the potty. And then they meet the dog. And so, yeah, they explain everything to Loid that's happened while he was gone. And Loid just looks like, he's like, I drugged these two into this incident as well. So yeah, so Yor must have told him about the terrorists, and so he's figured out that they kind of have an inkling of what's been going on. He's like, I can't believe they're involved, and he just looks overly concerned. And I love that he does that. He does that moment of give me strength where he's like does the eyes closed where he's like, I'm sorry this all happened while I was in the bathroom. Right? He's like, this is just rough. And Yor's like, no, it's probably because of the food that I made. What I hate is that Yor blames herself for a lot of the things that happened. And it's like, Yor, if only you knew he was a spy, you would not, it's not your cooking that caused this. And he's like, no, it's fine. And he's like, and you, when he gets on to Anya, yeah, he's like, and I don't blame him for yelling at her in this instance, because he's like, you should not have ran off. You caused Yor a lot of grief, and you could have gotten really, really hurt. Like, I don't blame Loid for getting mad at her at all. And then she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, well, so you're not hurt. Like, he's instantly like, I'm not happy, but fine. She's like, no, I'm fine. Mr. Dog protected me. Oh my gosh. And then Lloyd just looks over and he's like, this must be from Project Apple. I thought from the flashbacks that he was experimented on by the same scientist that talked to Anya. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look at episode 1. But I thought that it was the same one. And so Lloyd decides, he's like, I can't let this dog just run free. And so he looks over the window and Handler's like, all right, we found him. And yeah, poor Mr. Dog, he's not bad at all. So then I like that Sylvia shows up, but she's put like 3 moles on her face. She's put all these extra moles that were not necessary. It's almost like overkill. But she asks about the dog, right? And at the time, I thought that Lloyd would assume that Anya, the dog that Mr. Bond here, that Bond, our dog, I thought that he would assume that that was Anya's choice to have a pet. But he did not. He thought she just found a random dog, but it wasn't the one that she wanted. And so he wanted to take the dog back. And then she thought so too. She's like, oh no. I'm like, I don't think Anya would have been that devoted to that pet if she didn't want it. And Anya's like, no, I want this dog. And of course Lloyd's like, no, you can't have the secret agent dog. And she's like, no, I want to take care of Mr. Dog. And he's like, that dog belonged to the bad guys. And she's like, but he saved me. And then Lloyd's like, well, you said you wanted a small dog. And she argues with him. And she just, Anya throws a full on, like, this is the dog I want. I'm going to use my tears. Anya has a little bit more control over Lloyd and Yor than maybe a little kid should. Because she's like, if you don't let me have him, I'll go bad and stop going to school. I'm like, oh, honey, that would have got shut down real quick. But my parents would have been like, nope. But Handler and Lloyd Handler and Lloyd are like, oh, crud, what are we going to do? Because she's not actually Lloyd's kid, and she's not Handler's kid, so Handler can't discipline her. And Lloyd is like, what do I do? He doesn't know. He's like, why are you bringing up school now? And then we see, when we saw Anya reflected in Handler's glasses, I said in the last episode that Handler looked like she could be Anya's mom with the hair. Now that we know that she had a daughter, it's like, oof. But I wondered when she saw the reflection, like, what that meant. And she was like, fine. We'll let her have it. I like that Lloyd's like, Handler, man, Lloyd and Handler do not do a good job of being covert in this scene. They're just lucky that Yor doesn't mind and Anya's a kid. Because, when Lloyd's like, what do you mean? And she's like, are you sure about this? And she's like, yeah, I don't think that one dog going missing will cause any issues. We just got to look over him. The terrorists arrested so that the dogs can't actually do any harm. And Lloyd's like, wait a minute, no. And she's like, Operation Strix is in danger. What else can we do? This little kid's got us by the balls. I'm surprised they talk about it so, like, right there in front of him. And she's like, well, he's under your supervision. Keep an eye on him. And Lloyd's like, I got enough to take care of. And Anya's just like, are you trying to give me even more work? Yeah. And then she says, are the police officers going to be mean to them? Like the other dogs. And I love Sylvia when she gets down a level. Like, you can tell Sylvia's really good with kids. That she's like, it's going to be okay. The dog's going to be fine. You'll see. Like, you can tell she's had worked with kids before. And it's like, she's like, I'm sure these dogs have had a hard life. Like, she's so pretty in that shot, like with her big eyes and everything. And we don't know exactly when she met Lloyd, but I feel like it's when Lloyd was younger. So maybe she knows. She's like, you just make sure you take really good care of him, okay? And Anya's just like, Anya's like, you can tell Sylvia's been a parent because of the way she handles the situation. Anya's just like, And she's like, thank you very much, important lady! Important lady! I love that part. I love it. And she's like, well, yes, I am rather important in this situation. And she tells Lloyd that she's a good girl. I was worried about that. I was wondering how Sylvia was going to take Anya, if she was going to think Anya was a good kid or not. And she does, which I'm really happy about because I was a little bit worried. I was worried that she wouldn't think Anya was a good kid. And I'm like, no. And then I love that Lloyd's like, you have no idea what I've been through. And she's like, oh, I do. No, I do. She's like, I also had a daughter about her age. She doesn't say I have a daughter that, would imply that she had been her age. She said I had. Like, meaning that she lost her kid when she was probably around Anya's age. which adds like a whole nother layer to Sylvia's character, which is interesting. I'm very fascinated by Sylvia's character. I like Sylvia. I'm really interested in seeing what else we get out of her as the series goes on. And I love that look she has. She's like savoring this moment of seeing this little kid again that reminds her of her daughter. She's like, thank goodness today ended peacefully. I do like the relationship that Loid and Handler have. There's like nothing, I don't feel anything romantic about it, but it's just like the ultimate like boss and coworker relationship. Like I just think that Loid really deeply respects Sylvia and vice versa. And she's just such a cool character. I love her. So yeah, they end up saying they're going to take him to check him for illnesses and make sure he's not like, wiretapped or anything like that by the Austinian government or anything. And then they'll bring him back. So I am curious to know if they're going to put like any surveillance devices on him. Like maybe, who knows? I like Anya's in little kid mode where she's like, the field trip doesn't end until we get home. Don't let your guard down. And Lloyd's like, this isn't a field trip. It's like, oh my gosh. And then she just grabs Yor's fingers. It's curious. I almost feel like Handler looking at them walking away as a family is like kind of nostalgic for it. Also, I'm like, if Handler like totally tries to ship Loid with Yor, I know that they're in the middle of like a war and everything. Probably not, but I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, I love that Yor is like, I did something great today. I defeated a bad guy. I protected the peace. I drop kicked a terrorist car. Things were great. And Anya's like, I saved my dad and disarmed a bomb. Everything's great. Like, I protected world peace too. Like, they're just so happy. And then Loid is just like about to die. He's like, we protected, like, Yor and Anya have glass half full, mentalities towards all this. And Loid is like, glass half empty. He's like, my stomach physically hurts. I'm just exhausted. Like, you can feel Loid's exhaustion. My dude needs to sleep. And then he gets home, and we see like 2 traffic accidents occurred in the city, one right after another. Like, the evening news is on to what's been going on, right? As Anya's sitting there, like, pacing, waiting for her dog to come back. Oh, so this must be like, but I feel like they said they'd bring him back in the morning, so... But I guess they came back early. They said they'd bring him back in the morning, but it's nighttime, right? So, or maybe not. Maybe it's the weekend. I don't know. Like, please take good care of him. And then he sees the vision that he saw earlier. And then we see the poor Bond, him being stuck, like, with the food and everything, and seeing them being, like, tortured and everything. It's so sad. Yeah, I feel like that one doctor was around when Anya was experimented on. I'm not sure. But yeah, but then Anya's so happy to have him. Like, it's so cute. And he's like, the summit that began yesterday is now beginning its second day. And it appears disarmament negotiations are going smoothly. Supposedly, yeah. Okay. So I like that Anya's had little shorts on this whole time. I thought Anya had a dress, but she's had little shorts. Those are so cute. And Anya asks the question we've all, lamented, the fact that she's not going to get any stars out of this. Like, girl disarms a bomb and saves world peace for a moment, and she gets nothing. And he's like, no. He's like, Lloyd's like, and let's also not talk about this. He's like, let's not, to make sure the East and West keep getting along, we need to keep it a secret. So let's not talk about it at school. And she's like, He's like, or the police will come get you and you can never come home. And she's like, oh God, no, shock. I love Anya's just like her Muppet sad face where she's like, I guess, she's like, well, after we saved the world together too. I love that. I love that she's just like, and even after we saved the world together, we can't tell a soul, like, our thankless job. Anya's technically a spy now, right? Aw. And so then Yor's like there to help her get ready. And she's like, well, if I can't get any stars for stopping the bad guys, then it's friendship scheme is the only way. And so she's like, my goal is to get into Damian's house. Now, her strategy is actually pretty good. And it works pretty well, except she can't name her dog. Yeah, so Damian's being like, what? You got a dog? And he's like, and her reasoning, I thought this was real. She was like, oh, Damian goes, let's see which one is bigger and bring him over. Makes total sense. Like, she knows his personality enough to know that would actually work. So, that's great. And then I love she's like she's like such an evil aura. It's great. She's such a mix of Loid and Yor, where she gets like Yor's aura, but she kind of has like Loid's cheekiness. And the other guys are like, oh my god. And so she tells Becky, Becky's so good. I love that Becky's like, oh, it looks like she's over her Starlight phase. Like Becky understands that it's a phase, right? That's so cute. And then she talks about having a dog, but it doesn't have a name. She's like, a dog has appeared at Anya's house. And she's like, oh, what breed is it? What kind is it? Is it like my Weissel? And she's like, it's some white kind. Like poor Anya's not good with the details, right? But she realizes that it easily got Becky's attention. She's like, got it. She's like, if Becky wants to come over and hang out with me and my dog, that means that Damian will too. And it almost works. It actually almost works, where Damian's like, he's like, well, why don't you tell me the name of your dog? Like, he's being nice. Damian's being nice. He's trying to be subtle. Right? And she's like, she's like, I have a dog now. Yeah. And she's like, so, like, so proud of herself. And then whenever he's like, and so what? And she thinks she's failed, and the two friends, like, tell Damian to, like, make fun of her. Damian's like, He's like, no. He's like, let's be nice. He's like, well, what's its name? And everybody's like, so surprised. And then Anya, she just gets the biggest face, like, I won. I did it. I've gotten him on my side. And then Damian, of course, it's her with the sparkly face. Damian is like, of course, in Damian vision, it's probably amped up like by 10. So you know he's just like about to pass out. And she's like, oh, his name, it's Dog. And then they just leave her. God, but her face when he said, and so, like her shock face was absolutely wonderful. So Becky is pretty smart. She's like, name after cute food or flower. All of our barn cats at my parents' house are named after food. And I have named things after flowers before, so that's really good. But no, that doesn't fit Anya. Like, Anya likes peanuts, but other than that, she's not a big foodie. And Anya doesn't really like flowers, so she's like, what do I call him? And I love that she goes on the journey in the dog park. And she like marching there. I love that she goes on the journey in the dog park to like discover how people have named their dog. She's doing her research. That's really good. But she asked to hold the leash on the way there, and Loid smartly is like, no, you're not ready for that. Like, he'll drag you around everywhere. No. He still needs household training before he'll be ready to go. Like, no. And so then, yeah. I love that Anya, he's like, well, what do you want to name him? She's like, my naming abilities are dismal instead of abysmal. And he's like, oh. He's like, well, a simple name that's easy for him to understand and for us to say would be best. And he says, dogs can't tell consonants apart very well. Because they can't tell consonants apart very well. So you need to have something that has a strong vowel sound. So like with an A, what does he say, with an A, a U, or an O? Which is actually really true. We were always told, my mother raises corgis, and so we were always told that you need something with like an E sound, which E can be a vowel, pseudo vowel. So you need like an E sound because they respond to it really well. Like we had Lucy, and we have Ruby and Charlie, and then I have Huckleberry, and so that's kind of like the naming nomenclature of it. You have that strong E, which Y can be a vowel in that sense, that strong sound. Bond doesn't exactly fit that, but it's fine. It fits Anya. And so then what does yours say? You can't tell the causes of death apart very well? Like what? Crush to death? Bleed to death? I was like, what? Your girl? Always, Loid, by the way, always looks so fashionable. Like whether he's in a suit, whether he's in his green suit, whether he's like got his collar popped on his wool coat. Loid is he's just too much. Too much for all of us. And so yeah, that nice foreshadowing with the bulldog, right? The bulldog that like takes everything. And then we see like all the dogs. And I love that Anya like goes around asking. And so we have like Leo and everything. She asks their names. And what does she say? She's like, I've decided to name you, what does she say? After reviewing all the names, she says, Lucky Vanilla Princess III, which Lucky would have worked. But Princess Vanilla III, like it's a boy dog. That's not going to work. And he says, oh, well then what about Atomic Angel Charlie General? Like she's combined all the names from everybody else's dogs together. And then maybe she did Princess the Third because there were 3 princesses. And so I love that Yor just finds it like so heartwarming. She's like, this is so sweet. But she's like, Anya seems to be having a lot of fun. But then we cut over to Loid. And I was like, Loid's going to make this angsty. Because he can. Like, Yor's soaking it all in. And he says, be prepared to take care of him until the end. Now, it makes more sense now after he finishes the thought. When he first said that, I was like, ooh. I was like, this dog's kind of old. I'm like, be prepared to take care of him until the end. It's a little morbid for a kid to think about a pet dying, right? Like, that's kind of, And so at first I was like, oh, you're going to make this really sad. Like, this dog doesn't have a lot of years left, right? But then it gets even sadder because Loid is like, no, that's not what the sad part is. The sad part is that as he's watching Anya, like, play and have these beautiful moments with her dog and her family, he's like, no, I have no right to tell her that because I'm going to leave her. He's like, once this mission is over, there's no more use for the forgers. And he's like, my relationship with these 2 will end. And he says, of course, I'll do my best to follow up with them, but he's in another country. He's going to go back to Astalis and leave Anya and Yor here in Ostenia. And yeah, following up is he's not going to go make weekly visits. He's going to leave them. And so he's like, when he tells her take care of him till the bitter end, until the end, it's like, he's not going to be doing that. So, but this terrorist incident has reminded me yet again that this peace between the East and West is just a facade. It's like the Cold War has to end as soon as possible. That will be the optimal future. He's like, and he steps out into the light at that point. Yeah, so he's like, this whole maintaining these peace talks and everything, and Damian and his dad, that's all just a band-aid. He's like, until we actually stop this war between these 2 countries, it's not going to change. But yeah, oh my gosh. Loid, you're giving me all the angst. All the angst. I do love Anya's little peanut bag. It's so cute. And every time he's like, we'll start studying when you go home, she's like, shock. Like, I just love how dramatic she is, right? And then she loses her gloves, which you would think, you're like, oh, what kid loses a glove? Every kid loses a glove. Every small child somehow loses the thing on their very hands. It's the most baffling thing. My cousins and everything, I'd be like, how do you lose shoes? How do you do this? How does this work? But somehow it happens. But Bond goes and gets the gloves back from that bulldog. And I like that he didn't even do anything to the bulldog, right? He just glared at him and the bulldog, like, keeled over. And the woman's like, oh, what a meanie, right? You stupid stray. Aw. But him giving her the mittens back reminds her of Bondman bringing back the trinket to the princess, right? Which she's like, the princess is the most stereotypical princess possible. And she's like, you even got little gloves like Bondman does. Aww. I want her to tell Damian that he's named her Bond and see how that works. But then, yeah, this is just cuteness. She goes back. She gives him all the kibble. It's adorable. He's like, don't feed her too much. And then like, I wondered what they were going to do about using the bathroom. But they have like a litter box for him, which maybe in Japan they have litter boxes for dogs. I don't know. I've never seen a litter box used on a dog. I mean, there's puppy pads, but then those aren't really conducive to this world, the time frame and everything historically, so interesting. And then they sit down and watch TV together. And I like that Loid's always aggravated. He's like, I told you to study. It's like, Loid, your discipline skills, sir, they need maybe a little work. But she's like, when I get in my bath, you two better be done. And they're just giggling and carrying on. And he's just like, those little... We don't get any fan service, though. We get Henry Henderson's calves, but we don't get anything off of Loid. But then I love that Yor's sitting there humming, and when he comes out of the bath, she's like, shh. I thought that maybe, they'd be sitting there studying at the table. Loid wouldn't have to tell her again, but not going to hold out for that. Instead, she's like, look. And they're both asleep. And they're just passed out. They wore themselves out playing and fell asleep. And she's like, is this a little angel in our midst? I'm like, Anya does look angelic there. Little angel she is not, but she does look angelic there. And Loid, he's like, I guess we'll let her off the hook for today. You big softies! Look at you. You caved. You caved. Oh my gosh, but such a cute episode. So cute. And yeah, I like that Loid keeps bringing to the forefront the reminder to us, the audience, that even though we have a new family member, even though we now have a dog and Anya has her Stella and, Loid and Yor have been working to be her parents, even though all that's happening, at the end of the day, Loid is fully prepared. He's not forgotten that this is all temporary. And at the end of the day, he's probably going to have to leave them. Which is really sad. I don't want that to happen. I want Loid and Yor to get together and stay together and for Anya to be their kid. I don't want that. So that's really sad. Not happy about that, no. So that little dose of angst, it's like, no, because then what happens? You gonna leave Loid, you're gonna leave Yor and Anya with Bond and that's it? That's really sad. I don't know. So yeah, and getting that little bit of extra information from Sylvia, from her being the parent. Oh my gosh. And then Damian, I want Anya now to go back to Damian and be like, he has a name, Bond. And then Damian's like, okay, and? She's like, ah! Anya had a great plan. She has good plans. They just backfire horribly. I'm like, will she ever get Damian to invite her to his house? I do not know, but this was such a cute episode. And after kind of the stress of the last two, it was a nice little end of the three-parter to go into the next episode. So yeah. So we have next episode. We'll start a new mission, maybe a new arc. We had our Borf arc. I feel like from episode 11 to this episode, it was the Borf arc. I know at the end of episode 11, we had the preview, and then episode 12, we kind of skipped over it. It was the Penguin Park, but then I feel like that's been our arc to get Bond into the family. And also, oh my God, not only is his name Bond after Bond Man, but he's a Bond that's brought the family together even further. You know. So yeah, there's that. Cool. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the next episode. I hope you all are too. But I'm excited to hear your comments down below and what you all thought of this episode. It was a sugar rush, but I absolutely loved it. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 16 of Spy Family. Bye.